is the Mandalorians, the Explosion Network's after show, breaking down, discussing, reviewing each episode of the Disney Plus original Star Wars series, The Mandalorian. My name is Dylan Blight, and joining me, Ashley Hobley.
Hey Dylan, I'm excited to be here to be here so you can tell me exactly what's going to happen next episode.
Yeah, I do get a gold star, I think, for my predictions last week. Like, obviously, I didn't predict everything, but pretty much. I mean, I got the general.
Pretty close.
I got the general, apart from the big reveal at the end. Obviously, I got the general scope, but I thought it was very obvious, to be honest. You know, that's why I'm a professional movie and TV critic. I just know the ways of the thing.
Come on, John, take the mask off. I really appreciate you playing the beat.
So this week's we're talking about episode 3, chapter 3, called The Sin. Was directed by Deborah Chow, written by Jon Favreau. Of course, noteworthy, first time a female director has directed anything Star Wars live action. So big pluses there. And also, before we jump into first impressions, it is also again worth noting that she's going to be directing the entirety of the Obi-Wan Disney Plus series. So a lot of people watching this episode with like, prove yourself to me, Deborah, prove that I don't have to yell at you on the internet, you know, all this sort of stuff. And then I did laugh because once the episode over, people were like, yeah, you did a good job, but you have my permission to do it. I'm like, she was doing it either way, you know, like it's, she didn't need your permission. She was already hired. She was already in for the job. So this week's episode, we see the Mando return Yeetle to the client and receive his reward of Beskar, but quickly has a change of heart and heads back to save the little cutie. So what are your overall thoughts on this week's episode? Did anything stand out? And what was your favorite moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good episode. Obviously, based on your prediction from last week, I kind of saw where this was probably heading, especially as soon as he dropped the young Yeetle off at the start of the episode. Like, yeah, that's not going to stick. I did it literally played out exactly the way you thought it was going to play out, which is kind of frustrating.
Really? You wanted me to be wrong?
I was like, obviously, I find the Mandalorian like culture aspect, I guess, an interesting thing that they kind of touch on, but don't really go too deep on. And then, yeah, you know, he gets out there and he breaks into that fortress or that building. Real sneakily.
Yeah, well, somewhat.
At one point, he does the Batman thing where the guy's talking to him and he's gone.
Yeah, sneaks off. Gone. See you later. Yeah, I would say this is definitely I mean, I know we're only 3 episodes in. It's always weird to be like, this is the best episode ever so far. But I think this is the best episode so far. Obviously, because it just feels the most like action-packed with the direction for the show. Like, I have no idea.
It's still 30 minutes. That's what's crazy about it. It's still so short.
Wasn't it like 36, 37, 38, something like that?
33, I think. I just double-checked, and there was like 33 minutes into the credits. So
my one criticism, and this isn't just for this episode, this is more like looking at the past 3. Imagine a world where Disney Plus launched with what we've just seen, the last 3 episodes, was a feature-length first episode of The Mandalorian, and it was the first, second, or third episode as one thing, and that's what you watched. And then it ended the way this episode, like, no changes. They just cut them together, obviously get rid of the credits and whatever and help transitioning a bit better, but just cut them together, and then the feature-length first episode ends with him taking off with Yeetle into space. I feel like that's like, if people sat down to watch this 90 minutes or whatever it would have been of this, they would have been like, holy fuck. Like, you know, like if you just sat down for 90 minutes. Yeah,
but then where do you go from there? I mean, you do another 3 episodes of 30-minute episodes. Was it 8 episodes?
I guess. It's 8 episodes, so yeah, they would have to slow it down. But I'm just like, I guess it's kind of like the Clone Wars. There's several things that reminded me about the anime series of this episode, which I'll get into when we begin breaking down the series. Yeah. But this 3-episode arc that we've had reminds me of the Clone Wars, where they would do 3 to 4 episode arcs that you could watch week by week, but then when you got the DVD and I would just binge watch them together, it was like one big movie feature. And this show feels very similar to that. And I'm wondering if that's the structure that's going to kind of play out for the future episodes, where it's like, okay, well, these 3-4 episodes play together really well. And you know what I mean? Like, obviously it's one continuing story, but this episode felt like the finale of the two previous, obviously, somewhat. Like, it really does just feel like you could cut them together into a movie.
I mean, you could. I mean, I guess going back, if they had have shown the Yeetle stuff prior, then you could have done it. That 3-episode arc launch day one.
I guess so, yeah.
But because they wanted to have that reveal.
Yeah. Then they can't.
And side note, we're getting that merch. As soon as that reveal happens, they got straight to work on Yeetle merch.
Yeah, they keep saying that Yeetle merch is going to be dropping anytime soon, basically, is the alarm bells ringing for everyone across the internet. The other thing I do want to talk about quickly before we jump into the episode is Yeetle himself. So just the general memeability of this show, actually, is one thing I want to bring up. So you've got Yeetle, that's all over the internet everywhere. Like millions of GIFs, memes, whatever. That's all everyone's talking. Number one thing that's most talked about with the Mandalorian is Yeetle. How cute.
Yep.
Great. Go for gold. Next thing that's most talked about is just the memes. So episodes prior, it was I Have Spoken. Now it's This Is the Way. Now you've got combinations. So I feel like I don't know if it speaks to like the way we consume media culture these days, and like the way it works and how to make a successful TV show. But it's like this show is more successful than, well, I wouldn't say more successful because like obviously the Star Wars movies have made a bunch of money. But I really just feel like this is hitting, even if they didn't mean to. I do wonder if they did mean to. The zeitgeist of the internet, simply because it has so many. The cute factor plus the memeability of lines and all this sort of stuff, like it is really hitting something within the internet zeitgeist. And I'm like, it is so weird. It's odd. I mean, it's good.
I mean,
it's getting more people watching it, I guess.
Just that popular, I guess. It's so universal, I guess, or popular that you feel you can make jokes about it and everybody knows about it. It's the same thing with Game of Thrones this last season. Everybody was posting Game of Thrones memes 20 seconds after the episode was finished. So it's just the way people consume TV now. So, sorry, people in anywhere except Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, or the Netherlands.
The Netherlands, yeah, can't forget. It's really, because it's quite odd, but I would love to see the numbers of episodes, because I could almost guarantee this is one of those shows where first episode viewership over the first 2 weeks, I'm saying 2 weeks because launch in America and then launch in Australia, I'm going to say those first episode viewership numbers were like, good. And it wasn't until like that second week, or like towards the halfway through when we had it and everything else, that I swear it started taking off. And then Yeetle's everywhere. And then how many people have now jumped on the show because of that? You know?
A lot, probably.
A lot. I would definitely say a lot. All right. So let's
also want to point out, apparently Disney have been taking down
GIFs.
Yeetle GIFs.
Yeah. Afraid of spoilers.
Mistake.
Which is a mistake.
Why?
Yeah. Don't do it. They're just going to come back.
Apparently it's like a copyright thing.
What?
Stupid.
Put them up yourselves then. Put on the official Disney thing or whatever. Make them available to people. This is one of those things. Quick side note with the corporate, the GIFs thing.
Another quick side note.
A quick side note. The companies always try and do this. They're like, we will take down something that we don't want. Well, we'll give a reason. Oh, spoilers, all this sort of stuff. You're only going to piss people off, and then they'll keep making them and keep uploading them. And so the cycle will continue. You will not win. So either if you don't want people sharing them around because they're not high quality enough for you or what have you, then upload them yourself and make them available. You know, because they could upload them and make them show up through the Twitter GIFs and Jiffy and whatever else. So it's just like pick your problem and fight it, but don't fight the people who are literally helping promote your show and get it viewerships and whatever else. Okay, so let's jump into breaking down the episode. Because overall, yeah, great episode. I was like, what was he talking about? So episode starts with they're aboard the Razor Crest. Yeetle crawls out of its crib and tries to eat the ship, I guess, or try to play with this little knob that's aboard the one of the ship parts here, which I've got. I do want to quickly note here, nearly everything that happens in the show is not throwaway. And that's another thing that I think is so good about it. Like, there's no like random throwaway thing. It's like, what's this random cute moment with Yeetle? No, it's important for later. You know, it's not just cute factor thing. It's important story reason why, you know. So then Grief calls in, Hollow calls in and talks to, I do like how he calls him Mando. It's like, hey Mando, you got everything. You got a good job. Yeah. Hey Mando, you done the thing. Deliver the cargo. So he tells him to deliver the cargo straight to the client. Mando then lands and takes Yeetle through the city. You see everyone kind of looking at him a bit odd because he's dragging a baby pod with little green critter inside behind him. But and then they head on side into the client's place where the stormtroopers meet them, and they grab the cradle and start like very roughly pulling it along, and Yeetle doesn't look too happy about it. And in fact, Mando even says like, be careful with that. And then the stormtroopers say something along the lines of, do your job, shut up, paid. Shut up, Mando. Then they get inside the building. The doctor comes out and begins scanning Yeetle, saying that it looks like a thermometer, like a temperature thermometer scanner. I have them at work. Like you stick them in freezers and stuff like that to scan what the temperatures are and these sorts of things. So he scans Yeetle and he says that he's very healthy. And then the client runs over Werner Herzog, and they're both head over heels with the fact that they've got Yeetle delivered. And kind of weirdly, they're like poking their head in. It's a little bit scary. The other thing I do want to note before we move on to the next event that happened is because the number one thing that stands out in this first section of the episode to me, because I watched the episode twice, and the thing that stands out to me the second time the most was that in the second episode we had a couple brief shots from basically POV point of view from like Yeetle. Like they were doing some shots that were like more from Yeetle's point of view, or like from inside its carriage and these sorts of things. Like there was one or two, I think. In this episode, in this section, as we're kind of going along here, they do a lot of shots from within Yeetle's pod. And I was like, well, they've done like a couple in the second episode, but this third episode, they're like, okay, we're going to give you a lot of shots that's basically from Yeetle's point of view. And that was interesting from a show that up until a certain point was all the Mando's point of view. So I don't know if that's being done on purpose to like slowly include Yeetle into like, I don't know really know what the connection is there, but it definitely feels like it's not just, oh, it's a cool shot, let's put the camera inside the pod. It definitely feels like they've slowly building up this momentum of saying that Yeetle's point of view is important as well, or something like, or becoming one with the Mandos, or along these lines. Yeah, because literally everything in this show is all from the Mando's point of view. We never cut back like we do in normal Star Wars and cut to what the bad guys are doing. You know, like this stuff that we do in the movies and whatever else. So. Yeah, I thought that's quite odd. But although the shots do look cool, that's other thing, like the inside the thing there. So then the Mando asks when Herzog's the client. Still don't have a name. Empire dude, I guess, bad guy.
A lot of people don't have names.
Yeah, no one has names in this fucking show. It's like Mando, the client, the baby, the child, whatever. All these random fucking things. Don't know what we're calling anybody here. So then Mando asks the client about the fobs. Sorry, I wrote it wrong in my notes. Fogs, I wrote. Fobs that were given out, and the client says that he had to guarantee the delivery, implying that he did hand out a lot to more bounty hunters, which when we talked about it last week, you were saying that maybe other people had like from a different side had been given them, and that's why they some were sent to kill. But it definitely does seem that they were all from him. The one key difference of why the Mando was told dead or alive, though, seems to be that when the Mando went and spoke to him, the doctor broke into the room at that point and let out that, no, I want it alive. So then the doctor's like, dead or alive. Yeah. But I guess every other time that a bounty hunter came in and spoke to the client about the job, the doctor wasn't there, and he simply said, just kill it. I think that's the key difference there. So it wasn't like different companies or different people.
I mean, there's still a chance there were more companies, but this currently...
This episode...
sets up... It feels more like set up for the end of this episode.
Yeah, this episode heavily implies that
definitive answer to that.
That they were all from this planet. Well, also, this planet basically seems like where all the bounty hunters live in the world now. It's like they're literally all here, it seems. So he then gets his reward of Beskar, and Mando watches Yeetle cry out as it's taking away, which was very sad to watch. This episode just pulls on all the heartstrings. Mando then asks the client what his plans are for little Yeetle, but then the client gets all snotty and basically tells Mando that it's none of his business, and to piss off, basically.
Yeah.
So
the business is done.
Yeah, business is done. Don't ask questions. It's against. He says it's against guild code. Against bounty hunting guild code is the things. But another thing that's important about this episode, I think, is that it becomes quite obvious that the Mandalorian, as much as before this show came out, and we didn't know what this show was about, is the thing. The more every episode, I feel like I get a better idea what the show is about, what it's about, where we're heading, the characters, so on and so forth. When I was heading into the show, I thought this show was going to be about a Mandalorian bounty hunter. Now I think the show is simply about a Mandalorian and Yeetle. I don't think the show's about bounty hunting at all, really, and I don't think the Mandalorian cares about bounty hunting. Like, the bounty hunting side of things is a means to an end, and I don't think he cares about bounty hunting code. Like, he cares about Mandalorian code. That's what his life is about. It's not about bounty hunting code, and he gives two shits. You know? But coming into the show, I feel like we thought it was more going to be about...
He's going to be bounty hunting every episode. Yeah. It's going to be a different target.
A different character too, like one that would care about bounty hunting code. Whereas now I'm like, he doesn't care about the bounty hunting code at all. Like that's not him. So then Mando heads back to the armorer with his ice cream container, and I just want to shout out some weird like tie-in thing that happened here. So the container that he gets the Beskar in is a Easter egg thing from Empire Strikes Back. There's a random character that runs past Lando when they're doing the escape from Cloud City, and for years that character has been. They called this item he was carrying an ice cream container, and they've used it as a joke. Like if you go play any of the Lego Star Wars games and things, they'll have this character show up randomly in the back of all those in like random Star Wars scenes, just carrying this container, which everyone started calling an ice cream container for whatever reasons, and just running in like screaming in different directions. If you go on Twitter, they added like 42 or something like that. I think it's 40 something hashtag things that come up with the little emojis, you know, when you do the hashtag. And there's one hashtag Wilbur Hood, which comes up with that character from Empire Strikes Back holding the ice cream container. And I'm like, and this went up a couple of days before this episode came out. And then everyone was like theorizing that the ice cream container was going to show up in this episode again, which it does because obviously he gets it handed here. But now people are also like, I've seen other people on Twitter being like, okay, well, they've got the hashtag Wilbur Hood. Does that mean that we can see Wilbur Hood like show up as a background actor at some point in this? Which, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Jon Favreau because he keeps chucking in like really random, obscure, like OG trilogy bits of trivia there. But yeah, go on Twitter, hashtag Wilbur Hood. There's a little character holding an ice cream container. Go watch Empire Strikes Back. Look out for Wilbur Hood. He runs past with that not that ice cream container, but the first time we saw a container like that. So yeah, Mando heads back to the armorer, or that's what I'm calling her. I'll say head Mando. It definitely seems like she is the head of the Mandos. You very much gather from this one. Yeah, she very much seems like she's the one in charge. I would definitely say this scene is everything that happens here in the Mando is like the reason I had to watch it twice, because there was a lot to take in, a lot happening, lots of words and things. And the first time watching it, I completely zoned out because I was just so like enthralled by trying to pay attention that I completely forgot to even take notes. So I'm like, well, I definitely have to watch the episode twice now. But it was all because of this scene where I'm like, I can't. There's so much happening here. So firstly, as the Mando enters, it seems like all the other Mandalorians are eyeing him off more so than last time because he's carrying a container of Beskar, obviously. He shows it to the woman, and she says, the armorer or head Mando, whatever we're calling her, she says they can be shaped in many ways, and warns him that it will attract a lot of attention, though. At this stage, we see other Mandos start creeping in from behind. One of them, bigger one, picks up one of the pieces of Beskar and says, "These were cast in an Imperial smelter. The spoils of the Great Purge. The reason that we all live hidden like sand rats." Then the woman says, "Our secrecy is our survival. Our survival is our strength." And I do want to point out here that this Mando speaking, the one that's picking up the Beskar, the heavy Mando, is what is credited as. And the dude that's credited as playing him on IMDb and such is the same dude that was in the bar in the first episode, like some MMA fighter or something. So he's credited as being the person in the armor, but the person voicing this Mando sounds very much like Jon Favreau to me. And I don't know, as of recording, I've seen neither confirm nor deny the fact that it was voiced by Jon Favreau, but I've watched the episode twice now, and I'm sold on it being Jon Favreau. I find it hard to not believe that's Jon Favreau. It sounds very much like him. And I would 100% believe that he would do it because he's voiced them before. You got breaking updates for me over there, or?
Well, it says on series creator Jon Favreau voiced Paz Vizsla, a heavy infantry Mandalorian, in a cameo.
Who says that?
Comicbook.com.
I mean,
it's on the Wikipedia page.
I mean, you give me very credible
according
sources.
To a report from Vanity Fair.
I mean, report from Vanity Fair adds credence? Yeah, sure. But that's not confirmation, that's report. Does that count? I'm taking it.
Sorry?
Whatever, I'm taking it. Report from Vanity Fair is credible enough. You started with comicbook.com, Wikipedia, but we got there. Vanity Fair I'll count as a credible source. So yeah, like, I'm taking that then. Confirmation. So Jon Favreau is voicing this character, which the character is credited as Paz Vizsla. In the Clone Wars, Jon Favreau voiced a character called Pre-Vizsla. Now, Vizsla was spelled slightly different, but the spelling is very near the same to the point where it's like, it seems that they're trying to make it out that he's playing a descendant of the same clan that he once voiced in the Clone Wars, which is getting into all sorts of, like, of course, the finer details of all this here. But it's like, because they're all, Mandalorians all have their own clans and whatever else, you know, and their signets and whatever else. So it's like maybe he's a descendant, but he's reworded the name or something. Maybe it was a spelling mistake in the credits of the show. I don't know if they spelled it wrong. There's also one other thing, just to jump ahead to tie it back into this point before we move on. And I'll go over it again when we get to it. But at the end, where this same heavy Mando flies up next to the Mandalorian ship as they're leaving, he does the whole like salute. Very Iron Man-like. For the character that Jon Favreau is playing, is all I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's all tied in. There was several moments watching this the first time I was like, it's fucking Jon Favreau. It's Jon Favreau. I think I got so distracted going, it's Jon Favreau. It's Jon Favreau. And until I got to the credits, I was like, presuming he was playing the exact same character from Clone Wars, but I'm like, he'd be too old. He'd be dead. I don't know, but here we are.
It's his kid.
Maybe, yeah. The heavy Mando then says that their strength was once in numbers and now they only come above ground one at a time. Another really interesting point. They only come above ground one at a time. So definitely to do with their hiding. They want to appear that their numbers are non-existent still. So they're only one Mandalorian is allowed to leave at a time. So they're never seen about. But then I'm like, that begs questions of like, okay, so they leave one at a time, but they're not pretending to be the same Mando because they all look different. That would be ridiculous. Yeah. So maybe like our Mando works at the Bounty Guild over here. Maybe one of the other Mandos, when he goes up, he does a different Bounty Guild or does something else completely different to try and get Beskar and whatever else, you know. But whatever they're all doing, up until this episode, because obviously things change, they were only coming out one at a time to protect themselves, it seems. So that no one knew that there was as many of them in hiding as there actually is. So then the Heavy Mando says, our world was shattered by the Empire, who this coward shares tables. And then he pulls out a vibro blade, and him and our Mando have a bit of a fight with one another. I also want to point out how cool it was to see vibro blades in live action Star Wars, because if you pay attention to them, they are actually like just vibrating like blades, and it was really cool to see. Because obviously in like animation and stuff, it's fine, but seeing it live action, I'm like, oh, that looks cool. That actually does look like it's just a vibrating blade. The woman Mando then talks about, she talks them down and asks our Mando if he's ever removed or had his helmet removed, to which he says no. And then she says, this is the way. And then all of the Mandos in return repeat, this is the way, which becomes the key slogan and word for this episode. I think
this element made me think that they're treating Mandalorian more like a religion than as a race of people. Like the way they do things and that kind of thing. Is he an actual Mandalorian, or is he just someone who got raised in the way of Mandalorian culture? You know,
I think at this stage in this episode, I'm voting that he's not actually born on Mandalore. I'm going to say that the whole like foundling thing is that the Mandalorian numbers, like core Mandalorian people's numbers, were dwindled to such a low number during the Empire's Great Purge that they start finding people, foundlings, and they start raising them under Mandalorian culture and ways. They've always, like, in Rebels or Clone Wars and whatever, like, it's always been like their armor and their ways is very much like a religion to them. But the way Star Wars treats religion is a lot different to the way that we treat religion in our world. You know what I mean? Because we always think religion means like you're praying to God and like some spiritual thing and all these other things. Whereas within Star Wars, when you talk about like religious things, it doesn't have to mean like spiritually. It could, you know, like the Jedi are spiritual in nature because of the Force, but they're not praying to like a god or anything. You know what I mean? Like, they believe in the greater...
like Buddhism, I guess, or probably like belief in reincarnation. And
it's more in line with that. So it's like, the Mandalores have a religious like way of life, but it's not the way that we would actually view religion down here on Earth. in the way we do it, but also the way they're treating Mandalorian culture in this group here seems like extremism, I guess, to what they need to do. Obviously, the never removing of helmets and all these sort of things, that is extremism. In both Clone Wars and Rebels, Mandalorians take their helmets off all the time. There's no like reason for them not to take their helmets off. Like it's their armor. They have their armor on all the time, sure. But they take the fucking helmets off when they're inside, you know, like it's polite. It's not helping.
It becomes a hygiene thing at a certain point.
Exactly. I feel like
unless they've got like UV lights built into the armor to like clean themselves.
I keep seeing people making the jokes online, but I'm like, what? I don't really need to know. Like, as far as I'm concerned, he can take it off in the shower as long as no one sees. Surely it doesn't matter, you know what I mean?
It says if he's ever removed it, and he said no.
Maybe he's a liar. Could be a thing. I would say that all ties into them wanting to keep the secrecy, though, I guess. Like, because they all want to be seen as one, and their numbers dwindling. And, like, if they're seen from a distance, they're all going to appear to be the same Mandalorian, just one making their way around the galaxy. The second they take the helmet off, they're different, you know? So I feel like that's what comes into that. And the whole "this is the way" slogan or line ties into their current plan of action to raise the numbers. Like, "this is the way" is not something we've ever heard before when it comes to Mandalore. It's something that these Mandalorians are doing on their path, and it just seems part of their plan to all pretend to be one, be in unison, work to raise money, Beskar, people, foundlings, help raise them, whatever else, and then slowly but surely eventually return, I guess, you know, once they've got their numbers back up. She asks who did the damage to his armor, and then he responds by saying a Mudhorn did it. She offers to make his signet a Mudhorn, but he refuses since it wasn't an honorable kill, explaining that an enemy helped him. And then she's like, "Why would an enemy help you?" And he's like, "He didn't know he was my enemy. They didn't know they were my enemy at the time," which I thought was interesting because he's viewing at this point Yeetle as his enemy. Well, he views him as an enemy now that he's handed him, I guess. Like, in his mind, he's like, "I've handed him over. They're going to think I'm an enemy now." So
he's got nothing to do with him now. Yeah.
She then says she'll make whistling birds instead, and he asks that she reserve some for the foundlings, which again they all say, "This is the way. This is the way.
This is the way."
She then forms his armor as we again see a flashback sequence. Oh my god, when was getting to this point? Like, I knew she was about to get into the armor, and I'm like sat back. I'm like, "Here we go, flashback scene. Let's go." Like, you know, I'm like, ready. Here we go. Anytime she picks up a hammer throughout the series now, I'm just gonna be like, "All right, flashback scene.
Flashback.
Here we go." So we see that the droid this time, like we see basically what we've seen before. The kid, which we're presuming is our Mandalorian, is placed into the hatch, and then the explosion seems to go off, and then the hatch opens again. Is what we see this time for the first time, and the droid standing there over him, and then the way it's edited though is like. It transitions as the hammer comes down as the armor is making his armor, and it seems like something could potentially be swinging in to like hit the droid. Like, and I feel like next time we have a flashback scene, obviously we'll see him being saved, but the key question here is who's saving him, and obviously I think that's going to be quite important. There are several directions you could go. Now, number one, the one that would make a lot of sense, obviously, is a Mandalorian saves him. And that's why he gets picked up and becomes part of the Mandalorian thing. A more on-the-nose thing that I'm personally not a fan of, but again would somewhat make sense, I guess, but it'd be very corny, is that Yoda saves him. And that's why he has a soft spot, because the creature looks like the person that saved him when he was a child. It could be a Jedi in general, just as a tie-in because it's set during the Clone Wars or whatever.
Obi-Wan Kenobi,
and then tie that in, be like, "Oh, there you go."
See, had Deborah Chow do this episode, all connects.
It's finally all come together.
Does the timeline fit? Like,
yeah, well, it's the Clone Wars. The flashbacks of Clone Wars.
How long is that between that and the end of this episode 6? How many years between?
Oh, like 30 something?
Yeah, okay. So Mandalorian would be like 30.
Mandalorian is probably like 30
40-ish.
to 40-ish, yeah. Yeah. Presumably. Yeah. Something along those lines.
Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're assuming that the battle droids are like separatist droids.
Yeah, very much. Like, if you see a lot more in this sequence, you can see in the sky separatist ships. You can see, so you got the B1 battle droids, and you can see a couple of normal what's called droids in the background at some shot too. So it's the Clone Wars. Like, the separatists are attacking a planet, whatever planet it is here. So to have a Jedi, be that Yoda, Obi-Wan, or whoever, come in and save him at the last point would make sense. It would make perfect sense because that's what the Jedi were doing. Now, I would more prefer it to be a random Jedi with no connection, because then it's just like not so weird. I feel like if they make it
Cal Kestis.
No, I don't think. Oh my god! I think if they made it Yoda, that would be too corny, and I don't like that.
Yeah, it would.
And also, if they made it a Mandalorian, I don't know if that makes sense. Because they would really need to explain why a random Mandalorian was helping fight on a different planet in the Clone Wars. Is the thing.
Yeah.
Don't know where this is going. Also, another thing I saw someone point out on the internet today that I hadn't clicked onto myself yet is that all three of them, the parents plus the child in that flashback sequence, the red robes they're wearing are very much like the red robe that we see during the Star Wars Holiday Special, which are supposed to be Life Day outfits, basically.
Yeah.
Which would imply that the attack is happening on the Star Wars equivalent of Christmas Day. More or less.
Yeah. And that was Life Day was mentioned in episode 1, I believe.
Yes.
The bounty.
The bounty says that he was hoping to get home before Life Day or something along those lines. So Life Day would be coming up. So potentially we could have an anniversary of
another episode flashbacks.
Yeah.
Celebrating Life Day.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like that could make sense. We hit Life Day in the show and then we have another flashback as he's remembering what happened to him as a child on Life Day and who saved him. But I definitely feel like someone's going to save him.
What if Jon Favreau's already made his Star Wars Holiday Special? We just didn't realize
We didn't realize it the whole time, but yeah, it's going to be the thing. Yeah.
The season finale is actually...
Maybe. Taika Waititi, come direct the fucking holiday special Star Wars, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. By the way, Taika Waititi is directing the season finale. Also, side note, by the way, I found out they put up some more IMDb credits and stuff on StarWars.com and stuff. Jon Favreau did not write every episode of the season. So,
no.
There you go. Dave Filoni, in fact, writes one. And someone else, I think.
Christopher Yates and Rick.
Yes. Famuyiwa. Jesus Christ. Yeah, we know who we're on. We know who we're on. Writes one as well. Yeah, so it's not all Jon Favreau as I thought last week. Where was I up to here anyway? Our word was shattered by the Empire, Mando things, blah, blah. So he says, gets the whistling bird, sorry. She then forms his armor, and we get the whole flashback. And the other thing of note here that I only clicked onto this episode is this is probably why he hates droids. I never clicked onto that last episode, but the reason he probably hates droids that we get the note of, like no droids with the whole car in the first episode, is probably because he got attacked during the Clone Wars by a bunch of fucking droids. And that would make perfect sense why a person would not like droids. That is a very sensible thing to have in a show.
Yeah.
With a character like that. It makes perfect sense, actually. Yeah. I was like, why does he hate droids?
Killed by snake. Your parents killed by snakes when you're a child, you're not going to like snakes.
It's probably true. But it's so funny because like the first episode I was like, oh man, like what's going on here? Why does he hate droids? What's the big thing going on here? But it's like, it really is just as simple as he got attacked by fucking droids when he was a kid. Of course he hates the bloody things. So then he heads on over to the bar where all the bounty hunters hang out. Now, the first thing I wrote down in my notes here was that fucking Zubio, which I've then come in and wrote edit. No, it was confirmed on Twitter that it was not. So when he first enters the bar, Greef is talking to this bounty hunter, and he's like, oh, you're the filthy whatever he says, something along these lines. And then I was like, oh, this fucking thing, it literally looks like Zubio. In case anyone doesn't know, Constable Zubio was a character that was originally revealed for The Force Awakens. And everyone was like, this character looks ridiculous and weird. They had a Black Series figure for him and everything. And he appears in the background of one shot for like a split second when the actual movie came out. The typical Star Wars thing. But I was like, oh man, it's Zubio. But then one of the Story Group people on Twitter confirmed that's not actually Zubio. And I was like, motherfucker, maybe another day. So then Mando speaks to Greef and we get, it's like, oh, like very much, so good about this show and what they're doing so amazingly is kind of what they did with, managed to do with Vader in like mainly Return of the Jedi, which is that they're getting so much emotion and story for a character that has a helmet on the entire time, through the acting and like what they're doing, by the way they're speaking, and then also the movements of their body. So you can very much tell in this scene that the Mando is filled with guilt at this point, or starting to fill with guilt. And he just wants to get to work. He wants to get the fuck out there, and he wants to leave, and he wants to get his mind off what he's thinking about, So he sits down, he's like, everyone's like celebrating him. It's like, Greef's like, my best bounty hunter, like come celebrate. I'll take you to the Twilight lap dance pools or whatever he jokes around and says. And he's like, no, just give me a job. And he picks up a job and He leaves. But then when he gets into his ship, and this scene is honestly, this scene is the example of why this show is so good and is being made by people who are amazing at what they do, is because it is a character sitting in a ship, and then the story and the emotion and like what he's thinking and what he's going through all plays out over the next 20, 30 seconds. And they don't need to do anything to show you. They just let the actor go through they let the character and actor go through the motions themselves, and then you fully understand what's going on. See, so many other shows would have cut this sort of scene or wanted to hurry up. They're like, oh, people get bored these days. You can't have slow scenes of people just sitting here doing this and like figure out what's going on. Like they take the time to let the Mandalorian flick on all the switches. They show you he switch, flick, 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 turn this on. Sits there, looks over at the thing, the knob's missing that Yeetle had, picks it up, looks at it, stares at it for a couple seconds. And you can tell that's why the show's so good. It's like you can tell it's a fucking dude wearing a giant helmet, but you can tell that on the inside he's like, ugh. Like it's kind of crushing him at this point, you know, like, and then he puts it on, and then they still allow it enough time. So they show you him flick, 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 everything shut off. They don't speed it up. They allow the scene to breathe and have as much time as it needs. And that's why the episode's so good. It's, as much as everyone wants to yell like Baby Yoda, all this stuff, like that stuff's all great. But I think the reason the show's so good so far is because they're doing scenes like this. And that proves that they're getting like emotion and character and real story into this. It's not just for memes and Baby Yeetle and whatever else. So yeah, after he does this, he obviously has a change of heart. He heads back to the client's place of work, and then he heads out back and finds the Yeetle's pod is in the rubbish, which I also found funny because I'm like, oh, they have garbage tips at the back of workplaces in Star Wars universe. Didn't know that was the
couldn't afford that interior trash compactor.
Trash compactor, no. They're like, just chuck it out the recycling out back, get it done. He then gets on top of a roof.
They could have put that on Craigslist or something.
Star Wars universe.
That seems like a reusable.
Yeah, do you want to use baby pod?
Sold it to some Jawas or something?
Yeah. Jawas would steal it. So then the Mandalorian gets atop roof, and he pulls out his rifle, which apparently has, I guess, extra hearing through walls ability as well. Something like that.
It's got sonic amplification.
Something along those lines, yeah. And he hears a conversation between the doctor and the client where he basically overhears, extract what we need, get it over with, blah, 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 blah. And that's enough for the Mando. And it was enough for me. I was like, yeah.
What are they going to extract?
Well, yeah. Okay, I've got thoughts on this. I'll pause when we'll get to the doctor's room. So the Mando knocks on the door and tricks some of the troopers to come out. And then he also goes down further and plants an explosive on the side of the building, blows that up, and then the Mando heads in, taking out some troopers and fighting his way inside. When he gets to the room that Yeetle is in, he's in there with the doctor, and Yeetle is strapped into some machine, and there's a interrogation probe droid above him, which Mando quickly destroys. The doc is saying that he's protecting it, and if it wasn't for him, he would already be dead. So then the Mando takes Yeetle, who is passed out, and heads outside. So stop there for a second.
Batman's his way out.
Yeah, Batman's his way out. In the room, obviously there's lots of interesting things. I don't know what's going on with Yeetle in the machine he's strapped into, some sort of just doctor bed type thing or whatever. I don't know why they have like the probe droid there thing. It's like obviously for the extraction, whatever they're trying to extract. There's several key things here though. That they're not, the keywords is extract. So you got to ask the question of what are they trying to extract? And I'm just going to throw it out here now because this was my first thought. Because I think if you listen to any Star Wars stuff, I'm into weird and crazy Star Wars shit. I'm just going to chuck out the word midichlorians.
Never heard of it. What is this weird Star Wars term that you've come up with?
I'm being serious though. Like, imagine if we haven't heard it talked about ever since episode 1. Imagine if that's legit what they're trying to get out of him. Now, imagine if the reason is this. All right, let's bring it back a second. On last week's episode of Alderaan Explosion, if you don't listen to that. You should, because we're watching movies and stuff and discussing them in the lead up to The Rise of Skywalker. I asked the question if this show could have anything to do with The Rise of Skywalker, huge implications and so on and so forth. And I said that I don't think it was going to. It was just going to have some sort of like First Order tie-in sort of stuff. Now I'm like changing my mind a little bit after this episode, because you've got little Yeetle here who's having stuff trying to be extracted from him. A little Force user from a species who grows old very slowly. Also a Force user who apparently, if we're judging by the fact that he did try and heal the Mando, and he wasn't just trying to do that, because when you watch the second episode first, you're like, he's trying to heal the Mando. He thinks he can help. How cute is that? Rewind the episode a second time after you know he has Force powers, and then presume that he can actually heal the Mando, and then let's presume that he actually does have the ability to heal people. Like, because the way Yeetle goes to do it is like he knows he can help, you know. But the first time you watch the episode, because you don't know he has Force powers, you're like, oh, he's a cute little baby trying to help. I very much think that he can help. Yeetle could have helped, but the Mando like puts him back in his pod. So I'm saying very slow aging species, very high midichlorian count, very powerful. Like, look at the way he takes down that mudhorn, holds it up, you know, strong, 50 years old, strong. Has healing powers potentially. You know, he would love to age slowly, needs healing power. One Palpatine probably needs all of the above. The other interesting factor here is, and I didn't catch this one, so I try to point out when I've seen stuff on Twitter or Reddit, so I'm not claiming to be the smartest person in the room at all times. I saw this on Reddit. Yeah. So someone on Reddit pointed out they zoomed in. So the Doctor's emblem in this episode is very similar. It's basically like 90% similar to the Camino symbol from Attack of the Clones that the Camonians, I think is how you say it, they all wear. So they compared it to a shot of all the little clones all working on their computers, the little youngling clones before they're old enough to go become clone troopers. And they all have this symbol on. And then you compare it to the symbol of the Doctor in this episode. Very, very similar. Like 90 to 99% similar. There's a slight difference with like there's a little bit of a different line underneath it. But more or less it's the same. So the Doctor has connections seemingly to cloning. So maybe it's like, is then Yeetle a clone? Are they trying to clone Yeetle? Is it the best idea to kill him if they're trying to clone him? Is it the best idea to kill it if you only want to extract midichlorians from it? All I'm going to say is that whatever they're trying to do with him is some weird and wacky Star Wars shit that they would not do in a movie, is what I'm going to put my bets on. I don't have any solid inclinations, you know? But at the moment, I honestly wouldn't put it outside the box of saying midichlorians. If they could bring back that term anywhere, you're better off doing it in a TV show that's already got good press for everyone saying it's the cutest thing alive. Then everyone can be like, no, but it's cute though. You know? And that would explain why George Lucas likes it so much. And he was on the set so often. He's like, yes, they're finally bringing back the midichlorians. Yes, we can talk about how they extracted them. But how do you feel about any of that?
I mean, I don't know if I would go that extreme as to say, hey, it's they're harvesting his midichlorians to give to the Emperor so he can come back to life.
Yeah.
I just think, you know, maybe they're extracting his liver to, you know, to help with impotence or something. No. You know, something basic.
That's quite right. That's quite right.
Or maybe they want to clone little Yeetle. Like, you know, this is a big moneymaker. We sell these tiny little Yeetle clones. Everybody's going to want one.
Maybe. I mean,
everyone's going to want one for Life Day.
Yeah.
There'll be one under every Life Day tree.
Well, in the Aftermath series of books, they say that they give out fucking Ewoks as basically psychological helpers to people. Here, have an Ewok as a little pet to help you with your problems in life. So maybe it could be a similar thing. I don't know. We're definitely going to get more. All I'm going to say is that I'm open to these weird and wacky possibilities. I kind of like it. Just saying. Just saying there's some evidence to point towards these. Jackson. Don't at me. Mando then takes Yeetle, who is passed out. By the way, it's a very cute scene just to see. You realize how small Yeetle actually is when he's being cradled in the Mando as he's heading out here. And then the Mando fights his way up.
It didn't feel like he was holding him the whole time.
Probably.
To be fair. Yeah.
Maybe the whole time Yeetle was...
Well, clearly he wasn't holding him when they filmed it the whole time, but it didn't look like he was holding him. Just, I don't know, the shape or the...
I think to make it easier, because they didn't have to like special effects in or obviously use a puppet or anything like that, they were like, just wrap this cloth up and then hold that and it would look like there's something there.
Yeah. It didn't quite look like it the correct weight or something. It just threw me off a little bit. But I mean, it's purely for practical.
Yeah.
So you can do the stunts and everything, but yeah.
Yeah. So then he fights his way out while protecting Yeetle. Mando even has to burn a trooper at one stage. So he shoots a couple people, gets hit a couple times, but his new armor obviously bounces off shots. Manages to protect Yeetle, doesn't get shot. I don't want to shout out the music every episode because I'll spend too long on it. But if I'm going to point out one piece of music per episode and allow myself at least that, is the piece of music that plays during this scene, especially like when they get into this, it kicks in the room where he starts hiding behind boxes and it's got this like, it's like real like tension building thing. It's fucking amazing. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, but they have all the fucking soundtracks separate on Spotify. It's doing my head in. I mean, I kind of like how
every episode.
Hey, every episode is different album. So if you go, it's like episode 3, here are the songs. Episode 1, here are the songs. They're not like one album that they're adding to. They're releasing them as separate albums.
I mean, yeah, but then you can just put them in one playlist.
You can. I mean, I'm just being nitpicky. I wish they were just updating the same one so I could shuffle it.
It's easier for you to distinguish which
is from
exactly
which, yeah. So every episode that drops, I've been listening to the soundtrack straight after. Which is good. And I like how they put them up straight away. That's another thing I want to shout out, that the fact that they are putting the music up literally straight after the episode drops is amazing because they've never done that before for anything, any TV show that I know of really. Not like this. Like Game of Thrones, they put that one track up for the first episode, but not like, they weren't like, oh, here's all the songs, from this episode. Here are all the songs from this episode.
They'll like put out like a random one, like after the long night, they released that one track.
Yes.
That plays towards the end. Yeah. And then just recently they dropped The Watchmen Part 1, a couple songs. Like 4 episodes worth.
Yes. But not like episode by episode, which is this doing, which I've never seen a show do this, and I really like it. Yeah. I appreciate it as someone who likes listening to
Ludwig knocking out of the park.
I've been looping his stuff. Black Panther, fucking Creed, this. Yeah. Just been on thing.
I mean, is the next Michael Giacchino. He's going to be doing everything.
Oh, I'm loving it. He eventually gets cornered by a bunch of troopers in this room, which is kind of a flashback to the first episode where they say they'll point guns at him and he's like, it's 4-1 or 5-1, whatever. And he's like, I like those odds. Well, he likes those odds because they work out well for him. He bends down on the ground. He's like, oh, I've got something protective, precious here or whatever. Puts down Yeetle, and then he releases those singing birds that got made for him earlier. Whistling birds, sorry. They got made for him earlier, which are tracking missiles, I guess.
Super rare. Be careful. Don't use them in very special circumstances.
10 minutes later.
Yep.
To be fair, he uses them for a good reason, to save Yeetle.
I mean, it's like a gun. It's like the thing.
Which one?
You don't give a person the show a shot of a gun if you're not going to use it in the episode. So.
Yeah, exactly. So then he heads out. He heads outside after this. He never runs into the client when Herzog, which I was like, okay, so I guess he's going to come back. Because I was like, I wonder if he's going to run into him just killing this episode, but I guess he comes back. Then we cut to the bar and we see that everyone's fobs are going off. Flashing again as the Mando heads out with Yeetle, I guess. They start
How lucky is it that everybody kept those?
Very lucky.
Even though they knew that the bounty had already been claimed.
Yeah. What?
You just chuck them out.
Yeah. And once again, it's like literally everyone on this planet apparently is a fucking bounty hunter. Everyone in that bar and apparently everyone on this planet. Bar, yeah. Which and seems like everyone on the planet, yeah.
What were they doing the entire time? Did they also not go to the planet?
I don't know. Just drinking? I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, so they're waiting.
They're lazy bounty hunters, I guess. Yeah. So then this whole sequence that plays out here is just the most Western the show has been so far, in my opinion. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of Western-y type shots and whatever, but this sequence, this shootout, everything that happens here is just Western 100% all over it. So Mando gets surrounded by Greef, and Greef tells him to put Yeetle on the cargo freighter next to him, and they'll discuss terms. As he's surrounded by a bunch of bounty hunters as well, obviously. Mando then goes over, leans down, puts Yeetle down, and then he's like, you know what, fuck this shit. He dives into it and then starts firing, and he threatens the R2 unit to drive, and that thing starts pulling forward. So when I say Western influences, I mean, I've seen this scene done in Western movies.
Yeah.
The way it changes is that it is a horse and it is a carriage, and the person dives into the carriage, they fucking hit the horse's ass, and the horse takes off. That is literally the sequence that we're watching here. And it's one of those things where I'm watching it and I'm very aware of the inspiration and what I'm watching, but I don't mind it, you know, like it's so obvious, but I kind of like it at the same at the same time, you know. I'm like, it's so obvious, but I like it. Greef is smart though, and shoots what I thought was going to be my big plot hole, because at first I was like, is he just going to literally get out of here after doing that? Because I'm like, just shoot the fucking droid or shoot the horse, whatever version we're watching here. But
these bounty hunters suck.
Yeah, geez,
no wonder they didn't get the freaking
no wonder
bounty.
they didn't get anything done. Greef is smart though, and he pulls out and he shoots the R2 units. Then Mando is stuck amongst them all. Mando starts shooting as many people as he can. He pulls out his rifle. He starts blowing up some bounty hunters.
Yep, it's not just Jawas that get disintegrated.
It's
anybody.
everything. It's everything, yeah. Then pulls out, uses his remaining of his flamethrower. That runs out of gas, and uses that. And all things, he manages to take down a few, but all things seem dire. And then he turns and he leans over Yeetle, and Yeetle like kind of wakes up and is like, "Oh, hello, Mando Daddy, love you." And it very much seems like the Mando's like, "You did a thing once, like do it again," you know, like use whatever the thing you did to the Mudhorn, do that again, kind of thing. It seems like he's looking to him, like kind of hoping for the best.
For a miracle, yeah.
For a miracle from him, yeah. But his miracle does not arrive from Lil Yeetle. His miracle arrives from somewhere else, as the rest of the Mandalorians come out of hiding, jetpacks above the city, and they start shooting everyone. And it felt like I was watching the animated series, honestly. That's what I wrote. My note says I'm watching an animated series. What the fuck? It's my literal note that I wrote down when I watched this. This was the most shocking and like all like, oh my God scene I've seen. And it wasn't like, oh, this is great, like look at all these Mandalorians shooting. I was like, that wasn't the way my mind was reacting, which I guess is how some people would be reacting, like, oh, this is a very cool action scene, look at all this. My mind was literally like, I'm watching a live action animated series. This is very weird, because I've seen scenes like this, you know. I've seen Mandalorians come in and start shooting people and whatever else. Obviously it's always ever been animated, but everything about this, the sequence, the way it looked, the way it was shot, everything about it, I'm like, yeah, this show is literally just fucking live action animated Star Wars at some point. It's kind of crazy. And it's weird because it's like also one of those things that I never thought, I guess I never thought I'd see in live action. You know, like I've seen lots of stuff happen in animated shows where I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Never see it in live action. I'll never do that. But here we are. Here's what's happening. And this also, if you ever thought this was going to happen, this seems like season finale material, you know? Not episode 3 material. But here it is. Here's what's happening. So yeah, they all come in and start shooting, and then he's saved, and the big Mando, voiced by Jon Favreau, comes down, and he tells him to go, and then our Mando responds to him and says, "We're going to have to relocate the Covenant." And then the heavy Mando responds with, "This is the way." And then, of course, this is the way, they all say.
This is the way?
This is the way. The Mando then heads inside his ship, and inside Greef is waiting for him. But Mando, very Western, once again, this whole fucking sequence. The Mando, once again, pulls out his grapple thing, sets off a bunch of smoke, and then Greef like fires blindly through it, trying to hit him. And then the Mando just shoots him once, and he falls off dead, so we think, to the ground below. But Greef is revealed to have lived because he was shot in his Beskar in his pocket. Once again, very Western, because they always used to do the whole like the Bible, or the gold bar or anything like that, you know, like stopping the bullet. Yeah, so very, very Western.
Very Western.
And then as he's flying off through the sky, once again the Jon Favreau one flies up next to him, gives him the whole Iron Man. As far as I'm concerned, that's done on purpose as a wink and nod because of Iron Man. And it was also kind of corny. I didn't like it, but I'm like, I'll give it a pass. And then Mando turns and says, I got to get me one of those because of the jetpack. Then Yeetle reaches out for his favorite.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he does.
Seems very important.
Yeah, and we know he does because spoilers.
Kind of necessary.
We see him in the trailer use one, so we'll get spoilers, Mando. You will get one eventually.
Well, he doesn't need to make any more Beskar armor, so
no, you just got to get better.
Save it up for their jetpack.
Yeah, this fucking show's like a video game. Yeetle then reaches for his favorite part of the ship, but this time Mando unscrews it for him and passes it down to him, and then they take off into space. Dun dun dun. So. Next week, I have no predictions really, because obviously the big difference between episode 2 and 3 is like I could kind of track where we're going because I knew what planet they were going to and what presumably was going to go, and I thought it was very tropey, but I'm still happy with the way it worked out in the episode. We do know for next week's episode is they are going to go to another planet, obviously, and on the planet they're going to bump into Gina Carano's character Cara Dune for the first time. We know that she's introduced in next week's episode because in Red, in the last interview thing that they did, she said that her character shows up for the first time in an episode that Bryce Howard directed. Next week's episode is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Saying all the names backwards. It's been a long episode. She's directed it, so Cara Dune's going to show up in next week's episode. So
finally, a woman.
Yeah, I mean,
without a mask on.
I didn't want to tackle it in this episode, this thing, but yeah. So yeah, that's what's going to happen. I don't really know what the Mando's plan is. I guess like obviously Grief is going to be after him now, like obviously for revenge or like out of reasons of you turned on the bounty code or whatever. But as I said, he doesn't care about the fucking bounty code. He cares about the Mandalorian code. I do wonder if he'll reach out and meet up with other Mandalorians. Maybe there's different covenants,
sects or whatever.
Yeah, like because they do refer to themselves as like the one covenant or whatever. So maybe they'll meet up with more and others and these sorts of things. Eventually, maybe they'll meet up with more covenants, and eventually at the season's end, they're like, "Fuck it, let's go take back Mandalore." I guess I don't know. Like, don't know if you can take back Mandalore. Maybe Mandalore's stripped bare so much by the Empire that the planet's like inhabitable at this point. We don't really know, I guess. Do you have any thoughts next week's episode?
I suspect he'll be trying to get rid of whatever tracking thing they've got on little Yeetle, so they can. So he's not. I feel like he'll be followed by a lot of bounty hunters, like whatever he's doing. So trying to figure out how to stop him being tracked will be priority number one.
The show went from us thinking it was going to be about a bounty hunter to a guy on the run from bounty hunters.
It's the fugitive.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of The Mandalorians. Thank you for joining us. You can find the show on explosionnetwork.com, youtube.com/Explosion Network, and all good podcasting services, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, of course. You can find also our Star Wars podcast, All Around Explosion, available right now, where we're rewatching and discussing the films as we lead up to the release of The Rise of Skywalker. This week's episode out on Thursday, we're discussing The Force Awakens. You can follow me on Twitter at Vivaladil, Vivaladil. You can follow Ash on Twitter at Ashley Holby, ASHLEY, You can follow Explosion Network on Twitter at Explosion Pod. And until next week, we have spoken.